My name is Caitlin Reynolds. I'm 28 years old. And for months, my own brother called every single one of my 5 clients and told them I was a professional scammer who would take their money and disappear. I had built my freelance graphic design business from nothing: logos, banners, branding for local shops in the quiet suburbs of Kalamazoo, Michigan. Those 5 clients were my entire income. After Ethan's calls, every contract vanished. I went from paying my rent on time to sleeping in my car using McDonald's Wi-Fi to check emails that never came and wondering how my life collapsed so fast. My parents always took his side. Every time I tried to explain, they texted the same thing: come home, apologize to your brother, accept that you were wrong, and maybe he'll stop. They acted like I was the problem for wanting to stand on my own. Then one morning, while I was still trying to figure out how to eat that day, a man knocked on the shelter door. He looked calm, professional, and carried an old leather briefcase. He said 7 words that stopped everything: your grandfather hired me 11 years ago to find you. He handed me the case and added quietly, he said to give this to you when things got bad enough. I stared at the worn leather. Etched faintly on the top in handwriting I recognized instantly were the words, for Caitlin, when she's ready. Inside that briefcase was everything my grandfather Hank had quietly prepared, because he was the only person who ever truly believed I could live independently. He used to say, you'll need your own path one day, and I've made sure you have one. Back then, I just laughed. I never imagined he saw the storm coming years before I did. To understand how I ended up here, broke, homeless, and holding a briefcase that changed everything I have, to take you back to the beginning, when I was still living under the same roof as the family that would eventually try to destroy me. If this story already hits close to home, please hit like, subscribe. If you want to hear how it ends, and drop a comment right now, telling me what time it is, where you're listening from. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now, let me take you back. I grew up in the quiet suburbs of Kalamazoo, Michigan, in a modest 2-story house on a street where everyone knew whose car was in whose driveway. My dad, Robert Reynolds, had worked as a shift manager at the old manufacturing plant for 23 years before the layoffs hit. He never complained much in front of us, but you could see the weight of it in the way he sat at the dinner table staring at his plate, like it held answers he couldn't find. My mom, Karen, picked up part-time work at the community center, organizing food drives, running craft classes for kids, helping with holiday events. On paper, we looked like the perfect small-town family church on Sunday's potlucks, with neighbors' smiles in the annual Christmas card photo. But behind the front door, control was the real rule. From the time I was old enough to earn anything babysitting money at 14, then my first freelance gigs, I never saw most of it. My mom opened a joint account when I turned 16 and told me it was for safekeeping. Every paycheck from those early jobs went straight in there. I never got statements. I never asked for them. That's just how it worked. If I wanted new shoes or gas money, I had to ask, and the answer usually came with a lecture about responsibility or saving for something important. My brother Ethan was 3 years younger, and the rules bent differently for him. When he wrecked his first car at 19 because he was texting my dad, just sighed and said, boys need room to make mistakes. When Ethan dropped out of community college after 1 semester and started bouncing between odd jobs, he never kept. My mom would pat his shoulder and say, Con trai thi kanthoi gian truong than. But if I missed a deadline on a school project or came home 5 minutes late from the library, the conversation turned sharp. You're supposed to be the responsible one, Caitlin. The comparison started early and never really stopped. Ethan would come home with a speeding ticket or another failed side hustle, and my dad would look across the table at me and say, why can't you be more like your sister? She's got her head on straight. Ethan hated it. I could see the resentment building every time my name came up as the example. He'd borrow money from me, $200 here, $300 there, to start something new. A pressure washing business that never got off the ground, a drop-shipping store that lost money on ads. I lent it because he was my brother, because family helps family. He promised to pay me back as soon as things take off. They never did. After high school, I didn't go away to a 4-year college. My parents didn't see the point. You can learn anything online these days, my dad said. And honestly, I didn't fight it. I taught myself graphic design through free tutorials and cheap courses on my laptop. I started small, making flyers for the local bakery business cards for a mechanic down the street. Word spread slowly. A coffee shop needed a new logo. A yoga instructor wanted branded social media templates. One client turned into 2, then 5 steady ones, who paid on time and sent referrals. For the first time, I had money that felt like mine. Not enough to move out yet, but enough to dream about it. Living at home started feeling smaller every day. I'd finish a project at 2 in the morning, hear my dad's footsteps in the hallway, checking if the lights were still on, and feel like I was still 16. Ethan would walk past my room, glance at my screen, and mutter something about how easy my job looked. My mom would ask why I didn't spend more time helping around the house instead of staring at that computer all day. The walls were closing in, even though the house had plenty of space. One Tuesday evening in late spring, I sat on the edge of my bed and added up what I had saved in the secret PayPal account I'd opened without telling anyone. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine, earned from late nights and revisions and client emails at odd hours. I opened my laptop, searched for apartments within a 10-minute drive, and found a one-bedroom above a quiet street rent I could cover if I kept my 5 clients happy. My heart pounded as I filled out the application. When the approval email came 2 days later, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope that wasn't mixed with permission. I told my parents over dinner. My dad set his fork down slowly. "You sure about this? Rent's not cheap." My mom looked at me like I'd announced I was moving to another country. "We have a perfectly good room here. Why pay someone else's mortgage?" Ethan just smirked and said nothing, but his eyes said plenty. I moved out the following weekend. A few boxes, my laptop, some clothes, and the old desk chair I'd bought secondhand. The apartment was small, kitchenette, one window overlooking the street, but the door had a lock that only I had the key for. I opened a new bank account in my name only. No joint access, no explanations needed. For the first few weeks, it felt like freedom. I woke up when I wanted, worked, when inspiration hit, ate what I felt like without anyone commenting. But the texts started almost immediately. My mom. "You okay over there? Need anything?" My dad, "Don't forget. Family comes first." Ethan sent one single message, "So you think you're better than the rest of us now?" I stared at that text for a long time before I replied with something short and polite. I told myself it was just adjustment. They'd get used to it. I'd prove I could stand on my own without breaking anything. But deep down, I already knew something had shifted. The comparisons, the loans, the comments, they weren't just family quirks anymore. They were the first cracks in a foundation I hadn't realized was unsteady. Things started small, almost unnoticeable at first. A client emailed me one afternoon saying they had received an anonymous message warning them about me. I thought it was spam or a competitor. I replied professionally, assured them everything was fine, and moved on. But then the second client canceled. Then the third. By the 4th week, all 5 had pulled out. I didn't connect the dots immediately. My inbox filled with polite but firm emails. "We've decided to go in a different direction. We found a better fit. Unfortunately, we won't be renewing." No explanations, no complaints about my work. Just gone. Desperate, I called each one. The owner of the coffee shop was the only one who was honest. She hesitated, then said, "Someone contacted us. They said you take deposits for designs and disappear. They even sent screenshots of chats where you demanded payment upfront and threatened to sue if we didn't pay more. It looked real, Caitlin. We couldn't risk it." I felt the floor drop. I asked for the screenshots. She forwarded them. There I was in messages I had never sent, demanding extra fees using aggressive language I would never use. The timestamps were faked. The phone number matched mine, but the wording was off. The profile picture was my real one pulled from my public Instagram. I checked my social media. New reviews appeared on my business page, anonymous accounts leaving 1-star ratings scammer. Took my money and ghosted don't trust this designer. The accounts were created the same week. No history, no friends. Fake. Then came the emails. One client forwarded an anonymous message sent from what looked like a generic Gmail address. The sender claimed to be a concerned former client and attached more doctored screenshots. The IP trace, something I only learned later, pointed back to the house I grew up in. It was Ethan. I sat in my apartment staring at the screen, heart pounding. The clients were gone. My monthly income gone. Rent was due in 10 days. I had maybe enough for 1 more month if I ate ramen every day. After that, nothing. I drove to my parents' house the next evening. Ethan's car was in the driveway. He was there. Good. I needed to hear it from him. I walked in without knocking. My mom was in the kitchen. My dad was watching TV in the living room. Ethan sat on the couch scrolling his phone like nothing was wrong. I didn't sit. I stood in the doorway and said, "Ethan, did you contact my clients?" He looked up, slow smile spreading. "What clients?" "Don't play dumb. The screenshots, the reviews, the emails. It all traces back here." My mom turned from the sink. "Caitlin, what are you talking about?" I held up my phone showing the forwarded messages. Someone told my clients I'm a scammer. Fake chats. Fake reviews. They canceled everything. I have no income now. Ethan laughed short, sharp. "Maybe you are. Maybe people just figured it out." My dad muted the TV. "Enough. What's this about?" I turned to him. "Dad, someone used our IP to send these. It's from this house." Ethan stood up. "You think I did that? You're paranoid. You move out. Think you're hot stuff. And now you blame me when your little business fails?" I stepped closer. "You've been jealous since I started making money. You borrowed hundreds from me and never paid back. Now this," he smirked. "Chingi chi, gyoi honem gyo, chikong kogi ka." The room went quiet. My mom's hands trembled on the dish towel. My dad looked between us. "Ethan," I said, voice shaking, "tell them the truth." He shrugged. "Truth is, you're dramatic. Always have been. You leave, start acting like you don't need us, and now you're crying because things didn't work out." My mom spoke softly. "Caitlin, Ethan chi lo cho gia jin. Kon jong lam lon chuyen. Shin loi em trai ji thi moi thu se on." I stared at her. "Apologize for what? For trying to live on my own." My dad stood. "You're upsetting everyone. Go home. Sleep on it." "I am home," I said. "This was my home. But I moved out. And now I'm losing everything because of this." Ethan crossed his arms. "Maybe you should have stayed. Maybe you're not cut out for the real world." I felt the anger rise hot and sharp. But beneath it was something worse, pain. These were the people who were supposed to protect me. Instead, they were protecting him. My mom walked over to the small desk in the hall where we kept important papers. She opened the drawer, pulled out the folder with my birth certificate, social security card, and the old joint bank statements. She held them close to her chest. "You're not taking these," she said quietly. "They belong here." I reached for them. My dad stepped between us. "Leave it, Caitlin." They moved as one, my mom slipping the folder into a locked drawer, my dad guiding me toward the door. Ethan watched with that same smirk. I grabbed my backpack from the entryway, the only thing I had brought. Clothes, charger, laptop. Nothing else. My dad opened the front door. "Go cool off. When you're ready to apologize to your brother, the door's open." I stood on the porch, keys in hand, staring at the three of them framed in the light. My mom's eyes were wet, but she didn't move. My dad looked tired, like this was just another argument. Ethan leaned against the wall, satisfied. I walked to my car. The engine started. I drove away without looking back. The pain hit hardest when I parked outside my apartment building. The lights were off in my window. I realized I couldn't pay rent next month. The bank app showed zero in the account I thought was safe, the joint one they still had access to. They had drained it while I was driving back. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, and let the tears come. Not loud sobs, just silent, burning ones. The people who raised me had chosen him over me. The love I had trusted was control dressed up as concern. And in that moment, I understood something I couldn't unlearn. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who will destroy you the fastest. I drove for hours that night, circling the outskirts of Kalamazoo until the gaslight came on. I pulled into a public parking lot near the river, locked the doors, and reclined the seat as far as it would go. The cold seeped through the windows. I wrapped my jacket tighter and tried to sleep. Every headlight that passed made me sit up, heart racing, convinced someone was watching. The next morning, my neck ached, my mouth tasted like metal, and I needed to use a bathroom. I drove to the nearest gas station, parked far from the pumps, and slipped inside. I washed my face in the sink, changed into the cleanest shirt I had in my backpack, and brushed my teeth with water from the faucet. The cashier gave me a long look, but said nothing. For food, I used the last of my cash on a $1 menu sandwich. I sat in my car, eating it slowly, saving half for later. My phone had 18% battery. I drove to the McDonald's on the edge of town, parked in the lot, and connected to their free Wi-Fi. I opened my email. Nothing new. No responses to the applications I'd sent the week before. Just rejections from the clients I'd already lost. Days blurred. I moved the car to different lots. Walmart, a library parking area, a quiet side street so I wouldn't draw attention. I napped in short bursts, woke up sweating or shivering depending on the time of day. I charged my phone in the car when the engine ran, but gas was running low. I stopped buying food and started rationing what was left in the backpack: a granola bar, half a bottle of water, an apple that had gone soft. On the fourth day, I was sitting in the McDonald's lot again, staring at the screen, when a woman in a coat walked past my window. She paused, looked in, then knocked lightly on the glass. I rolled it down a crack. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, but my voice cracked when I answered. "Just resting." She didn't buy it. "You been here a while? If you need a place to stay, there's a shelter on Millam Avenue. They don't turn people away. Ask for Maria." I thanked her and watched her walk away. I didn't know if I could trust it, but I had nowhere else to go. I drove to Milham Avenue. The building was plain brick, no sign out front except a small plaque: Kalamazoo Community Shelter. Inside, it smelled like coffee and disinfectant. A woman in her late 40s with short dark hair and reading glasses looked up from the desk. "I'm Maria Gonzalez," she said. "You need a bed?" I nodded. She didn't ask for ID or a story. She just handed me a clipboard with a short intake form and pointed to a chair. When I finished, she led me down a hallway to a room with 12 beds, some occupied, some empty. She gave me clean sheets, a towel, and a locker for my backpack. "You can stay as long as you need," she said. "Help with chores if you want extra meals. No pressure." I took bed number 7 near the window. That night, I slept deeper than I had in days. The hum of the heater and the quiet breathing of strangers felt safer than my car. During the day, I walked to the public library. They had free computers. I applied for freelance gigs again, small jobs on Upwork, local postings on Craigslist. I also looked for part-time work, barista, retail, anything. I sent out 12 applications in one afternoon. Responses came slowly, but a few led to interviews. One was for a coffee shop downtown. The manager seemed interested. I borrowed a clean blouse from a woman at the shelter and took the bus. But the next day, the coffee shop emailed, "We've decided to pass. We received concerning information about your background." I stared at the screen. My stomach dropped. I knew what concerning information meant. The emails kept coming. Another interview canceled. A potential client never replied after an initial message. Then Maria called me into her office. Someone phoned here yesterday, she said. A woman said she was your mother. Claimed you have psychological issues and could be a danger to other residents. Said we should remove you for safety. I felt cold. What did you say? I told her we don't discuss residents over the phone. She got upset and hung up. But I need to document it. She slid a form across the desk. If this happens again, or if someone files a formal complaint, my hands might be tied. I signed where she pointed. It was my mom. They're trying to get me out of here. Maria nodded slowly. I've seen this before. Family doesn't always mean safe. You stay as long as I can keep you here. But be careful. That evening my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Vena shin loi, Ethan jithoi, tiet lan roi kua van mo. Another from my dad. We're worried about you. Come home and we can talk. I saved every message in a folder labeled evidence. I didn't reply. I couldn't afford to give them anything they could use. The physical exhaustion was constant, aching back from the thin mattress headaches from too much coffee on an empty stomach, skin dry from cold showers. But something else was growing. Not anger anymore. Resolve. I started keeping a notebook. Dates, times, screenshots of canceled interviews, copies of texts. If they wanted to play this game, I would play it better. Maria noticed. She slipped me an extra blanket one night and said, "You're tougher than you look. Keep going." I nodded. For the first time since I left home, I believed I might actually survive this. Word travels fast in a town like Kalamazoo. Within a couple of weeks, the story had spread from my parents' front porch to the grocery store aisles and the coffee shop counters. My mom and dad didn't shout it from rooftops. They didn't have to. They told a few neighbors over casual conversations Caitlin left home because she wouldn't listen anymore. She thinks she's too good for the family. She's being stubborn. We just want her to come back and make things right. Small comments like that grew legs. People I had known since childhood started treating me differently. The woman who ran the corner bakery, someone who used to give me free coffee when I was freelancing, looked the other way when I walked past. A former classmate who worked at the library avoided eye contact when I came in to use the computers. One afternoon, I tried to borrow $20 from an old family friend at the gas station. He shook his head. "Sorry, Caitlin. Heard you've been causing trouble at home. Better not get involved." I wasn't asking for pity. I was asking for a lifeline. But the rumor had already painted me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family for no reason. No one asked my side. They didn't need to. In a place where everyone knows everyone, one version of the story is enough. The only person who didn't buy it was Lauren Mitchell. We had been friends since high school, shared lockers, late-night study sessions, the kind of bond that survives even when life pulls people in different directions. She worked at a small marketing firm downtown and still lived in the same neighborhood we grew up in. When I finally told her what was happening over a quick coffee at the shelter's common area, she didn't hesitate. She showed up the next day with an old laptop she wasn't using. "Take it," she said. "Your phone's dying every 5 minutes. You need something reliable to apply for jobs." I tried to refuse. "Lauren, I can't. You can and you will. I'm not letting you lose more ground because of this nonsense." She sat with me on one of the shelter's worn couches and helped me organize everything. We photographed every text from my parents, every cancellation email from potential employers, every screenshot of the anonymous reviews that had appeared on my profiles. She showed me how to back them up to a free cloud drive so nothing could disappear if my phone broke. "Don't delete any of these messages," she said firmly. "One day, they're going to save you." Her words stuck. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt like I wasn't fighting alone. Lauren didn't offer empty sympathy. She offered tools. She offered belief. A few days later, Maria called me over during breakfast. She was wiping down a table, her glasses slipping down her nose, as usual. "A man came by a couple of weeks ago," she said quietly. "Asked if we had a Caitlin Reynolds staying here. Didn't give a name, just left this." She handed me a plain white business card. Victor Hayes, licensed private investigator, State of Michigan, phone number. On the back, handwritten in neat ink for Caitlin. Call when ready. I turned the card over in my fingers. My first thought was that my parents had hired someone to track me down, maybe to drag me home, maybe to make sure I had nowhere left to hide. I had seen enough of their tactics to distrust anything that smelled like surveillance. But Maria was watching me carefully. He didn't seem like trouble. Didn't push. Just said to pass it along if I saw you. Looked more like someone delivering a message than someone looking to cause problems. I slipped the card into my pocket. I didn't call right away. I waited 2 days turning it over in my mind. If it was a trap, I was already trapped. If it wasn't, maybe it was a way out. On the third day, I borrowed Lauren's laptop again and dialed the number from the shelter's quiet hallway. A calm male voice answered on the second ring. Victor Hayes. I swallowed. This is Caitlin Reynolds. You left a card at the shelter. A short pause. I've been waiting for your call. Can we meet tomorrow morning at the shelter if that's convenient? 9 o'clock. I agreed before I could second-guess myself. When I hung up, my hand was shaking, not from fear exactly, but from the sudden weight of possibility. I didn't sleep well that night. The shelter lights buzzed overhead, someone coughed in the next bed, but my mind kept circling back to the card, to the handwriting on the back, to the fact that someone had gone to the trouble of finding me without demanding anything in return. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to hope that maybe there was something on the other side of this nightmare that wasn't more pain. The next morning at 9 sharp, Victor Hayes walked through the shelter door. He wore a plain gray coat and carried an old leather briefcase that looked like it had traveled more miles than most people. He spotted me, immediately nodded once, and waited for me to approach. We sat at a small table in the corner of the common room. Maria gave us space, but stayed within earshot. Victor set the briefcase between us without opening it yet. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, he said. Your grandfather, Harold Hank Thompson, hired me 11 years ago. He paid up front for periodic surveillance on your family. His instructions were clear: monitor quietly, document anything that looked like control or harm, and deliver this to you only when you had truly lost everything, including your identification papers and your means of support. He knew it would come to this. I stared at the briefcase. The leather was worn at the edges, but the lettering on top was still sharp for Caitlin. When she's ready. It was my grandfather's handwriting, the same careful script he used on birthday cards when I was a kid. Victor continued. Hank saw the favoritism early. He watched your brother borrow money from you and never repay it. He heard the comparisons, the excuses for Ethan's failures. He knew your parents would never let you leave without punishment. He told me, if she tries to stand on her own, they'll try to pull her back down. Make sure she has a way up when it happens. He clicked the latches open. Inside were 4 main items organized neatly. First, a cream envelope with my name on it in the same handwriting. I opened it carefully. The letter was dated 10 years ago. Caitlin. If you're reading this, things have gotten hard. I'm sorry I couldn't stop it while I was alive. I tried talking to your mother and father, but they didn't listen. I spent too many years watching control disguised as love, and I saw the same pattern starting with your brother. I know you'll need freedom. Don't use what's in here for revenge. Use it to build a new life. I've seen this toxicity from afar, and I've made sure you have a path out. I love you more than they ever let me show. Grandpa Hank. I read it twice. My eyes burned. He had known. He had planned for me when no one else did. Next was a small black USB drive labeled Recordings. Victor explained. Audio from Ethan's calls to your clients. He didn't know I was monitoring the house line and his cell when he used it at home. Michigan is one-party consent. Everything is legal. Then a thick folder of printed documents, transcripts of the calls, timestamps, IP traces showing emails sent from the Reynolds house address, logs of fake reviews posted from accounts created on the same Wi-Fi network, copies of the doctored screenshots with metadata proving they were fabricated. Finally, a set of legal papers bound with a clip. Victor slid them toward me. This is the trust. Hank sold his farmland 11 years ago, modest property, but he invested the proceeds conservatively. Treasury bonds, CDs, a few index funds. No one else is named beneficiary. Only you. The current value is $500,000. The law firm holding it has instructions to release funds upon presentation of your ID and this document. I looked at the summary page. The number stared back, $500,000. More money than I had ever seen in one place. Enough to start over completely. Victor closed the briefcase. Hank said to tell you one thing: you are always worth more than they let you believe. I didn't cry. I couldn't yet. I just nodded. The next step was Rebecca Lawson. Victor had already recommended her civil litigation specialist in Kalamazoo. I called her office from the shelter phone that afternoon. She agreed to meet the following day. Rebecca's office was on the second floor of an old brick building downtown. She was in her mid-40s, sharp suit, no-nonsense handshake. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything from the sabotage to the trust to the recordings. When I finished, she leaned back. This is defamation per se in Michigan, false statements harming your business reputation. The interference with prospective economic advantage is clear. We have strong evidence, audio, IP traces, metadata. Your parents' involvement as accomplices makes it joint liability. We filed the complaint that week. Defamation and intentional interference with business relations against Ethan, primarily with Robert and Karen, named as complicit for enabling and covering. The process server delivered the papers on a Tuesday morning. Ethan was served at a friend's house where he was crashing. He called my old number immediately 6 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Rebecca had advised no direct contact. My parents were served at home the same afternoon. My mom called Lauren's phone. She must have gotten the number somehow, crying. Lauren recorded it and forwarded it to Rebecca. The court date came faster than I expected. Ethan showed up for the first hearing disheveled and angry, representing himself because he couldn't afford a lawyer. My parents hired a low-cost attorney from the next county, but after reviewing the evidence package, audio files, IP logs, the trust documents proving motive, they advised settlement. Ethan refused. This is family business. The court has no right. The judge disagreed. When the full hearing arrived, Ethan and my parents didn't appear. No lawyer showed up for them either. Default judgment was entered. Rebecca read the ruling to me over the phone: $80,000 in damages calculated from lost freelance income, emotional distress, and punitive elements for the deliberate sabotage. A lien was placed on the family home immediately. No payment within 30 days meant foreclosure proceedings could begin. I sat on my shelter bed holding the phone, listening to the words. It wasn't joy I felt. It was release. The weight that had been crushing me for months lifted just enough to breathe. Victor called later that week. Your grandfather would be proud. He planned for this exact moment. I thanked him. Then I asked the question that had been burning since the briefcase. Why didn't he just give it to me earlier? Victor paused. He said if he did, your father would find a way to take it. He wanted you to need it first so you'd fight for it. I looked at the trust papers on the bed beside me. $500,000, a future I could build without permission. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time I had the weapons to win it. The judgment took effect quickly. 30 days after the ruling, with no payment from my family, Rebecca filed the necessary motion. The lien on the house became public record. In Michigan, that meant anyone could search the county clerk's database and see it: judgment creditor Caitlin Reynolds versus Ethan Robert and Karen Reynolds. The amount $80,000 plus court costs and interest. My parents had no choice. The house on Maple Lane, the one I grew up in with the porch swing and the backyard garden my mom used to tend, was listed for sale. It went for $160,000, a fair price for the neighborhood, but far less than they hoped. After paying off the mortgage balance, realtor fees, back taxes they had ignored, and the judgment, they walked away with just enough for a deposit on a trailer in a park 30 minutes outside Kalamazoo. Ethan tried to find work. He applied at warehouses, delivery companies, even a call center. But court records are public. A quick search of his name brought up the case summary: defamation, intentional interference, with business fabricated statements harming reputation. Employers saw scam allegations in the title and passed. He stayed unemployed longer than before, living off what little his parents had left. The community turned quietly but completely. Neighbors who used to wave at my parents now crossed the street. The church group my mom organized for years stopped inviting her. The community center where she volunteered asked her to take a break until things settled. They never invited her back. My dad's poker nights with old coworkers dried up. People didn't confront them, they just faded away. I watched it all from a distance. Rebecca kept me updated on filings and enforcement. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The truth had done its work without my help. With the trust funds released, I moved out of the shelter. I found a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of town, nothing fancy but clean, with a lock I controlled, and utilities in my name only. I bought a used Honda Civic with low mileage from a private seller. It wasn't new, but it ran. For the first time, I drove without worrying about where I'd park for the night. I rebuilt my freelance business slowly. I updated my portfolio online, reached out to old contacts who hadn't been poisoned by the rumors, and asked Lauren for introductions. She sent 3 referrals in the first month, small businesses needing branding. Word spread again, this time positively. Within 6 months, I had 7 steady clients, enough to cover rent, groceries, and a small savings cushion. One afternoon, a letter arrived at the shelter. Maria forwarded it to my new address. It was from my mom, postmarked 2 weeks earlier. Dear Caitlin, we're sorry things got so bad. Dad says he's sorry too. Come for dinner sometime. We can put this behind us and be a family again. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. No admission of what they did. No apology for the sabotage, the lies, the control. Just put this behind us as if it had been a minor disagreement. I wrote back through Rebecca one short, formal letter. Mom, I wish you well, but what happened wasn't a misunderstanding. You enabled Ethan to destroy my livelihood. You impersonated concern to get me removed from shelter. You kept my identification documents and drained my account. I cannot forget that. Please respect the protection order. Do not contact me again. Caitlin, I mailed it from a post office across town. Then I blocked the old numbers and changed my email. The protection order issued after the judgment prohibited all contact, including through third parties. One violation and they risked contempt charges. I never heard from them again. Some nights I still think about the house I grew up in, the porch where my dad read the paper, the kitchen table where we ate dinner as a family. But those memories don't pull me back. They remind me why I left. Toxic families often hide control behind the word love. They say we're protecting you while they clip your wings. They say family first while they punish independence. The guilt they plant is powerful. It makes you question if wanting freedom makes you selfish. But wanting to breathe isn't betrayal. It's survival. Independence isn't rebellion. It's self-respect. Choosing to stand on your own doesn't make you a bad daughter or sister. It makes you a person with boundaries. And boundaries are not optional when someone keeps hurting you. Cutting ties with people who sabotage your life isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. Healing doesn't always require reconciliation. Sometimes it requires distance, permanent distance. In America, the system works slowly but publicly. Court records don't disappear. A simple search changes minds faster than any conversation. Liens force sales. Judgments follow names for years. The financial consequences are real and lasting: lost jobs, closed doors, diminished options. My family learned that the hard way. The deepest part of this story isn't the money or the judgment. It's what my grandfather did. Hank saw the toxicity years before I did. He watched the favoritism, the excuses for Ethan, the slow erosion of my freedom. Instead of confronting them directly, he planned. He hired Victor. He documented. He set aside $500,000 in a trust only I could access. He wrote a letter that said, in essence, I believe in you. I've prepared a way out. Real love doesn't clip wings. It builds runways. It gives you tools to fly even when the nest tries to hold you down. If you're reading this and any of it feels familiar, if someone who says they love you keeps making your life smaller, start collecting evidence. Save messages. Document patterns. Reach out to shelters, legal aid, or a trusted friend. You are not alone. You are not ungrateful. You are worth the fight. I'm 28 now. I have an apartment with plants on the windowsill. I have a car that starts every morning. I have clients who pay on time and thank me for my work. I have a life that belongs to me. And I have the quiet certainty that my grandfather's plan worked. He gave me freedom when no one else would. And I will never let anyone take it again.